All right, so I want to tell you a little bit about this last Thursday, some training that I did on student-facing AI. So you can access all the resources right here at www.bit.ly/cbcsfai. So we started off thinking about this quote from Dr. Strange, where the Ancient One says, "You cannot beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own." So one way of thinking about this in the terms of AI, right? It's not something that we're going to escape, right? Like we're never going to be able to say, AI, you stay out. Like you have no place in here. It's coming, it's moving, it's pushing. And so rather than trying to just constantly fight against it, if we can realize the potential that it has and then how we might use that and adapt that in our practices, we can make ourselves into more powerful and better teachers. So some things that we'll talk about are just defining student-facing AI, what tools are available to us, and some ways that we can use these tools, how we might think about assessment, and then I'll share some resources as well. So when we first think of student-facing AI, we're looking at like the large language models like ChatGPT and Google Gemini and things like that. Oftentimes, they have age restrictions. For the most part, they're 13 through 17, need parental permission, and 18 plus is fine. But they're also going to be doing stuff with your data to train the AI and using the data that you provide in ways that, as an educational institution, we would not be comfortable with, and nor are we legally able to do. So a lot of these AI tools, they have some age restrictions like that. You know, like just even creating social media accounts, right? There's the parental permission of 13 years old, but we can't force people to have social media accounts. We can't force our students to do that, just like we can't force them to use these AI tools that have these restrictions right here. So when we're talking about student-facing AI, we're looking at some educational tools designed for teachers and schools, and there's a walled garden AI tools, meaning that the teacher gets to say what specific tools they want and what prompts those tools are going to be geared by or ran by, and then an overview and a chat transcription between the student and the bot. So everything that the student gets to do or interacts with, that's all visible by the teacher. And with these, students don't need accounts, and their data is not being used either. So what tools do we have? Well, we have some AI tools available in Canva, such as Magic Create, where students are able to mostly generate images from text, and that's just built into Canva. The Magic Write and other things are disabled for students. We also have Curipod, which is mostly a tool that teachers would use, but there are portions in there for feedback on drawing and short writing prompts. Another big one is Magic School and School AI. Both of these have really good teacher AI tools that you're able to use that will really definitely help you in your planning process and just developing lessons and giving you ideas for that. But they also have some student-facing tools where students could use them for different things, such as a chatbot to interact with and brainstorm, personal tutors, writing feedback, things like that. A new one for this year that we've subscribed to is called Snorkel, where students are able to, you ask students to provide a visual explanation, visual and verbal explanation of their thinking, and Snorkel gives them some automatic feedback right there. Another one that we're trying out this year is called Enlighten AI, which is one that you can use as a teacher to get some AI-generated high-quality feedback for your students' writing, but you could also create it so that students are able to submit in the moment responses, right? So if you have a short paragraph response that you want students to do, this would be a tool where they can get some of that automatic feedback. So these are all available to you. They have been approved at this list to use with students. If you're ever doing something where it's not on this list right here and students are having to use it, please let us know and we will review it and see if we believe that's something that the technology committee would pass, to see if that's something that is worthwhile to use with students. So some ways, perhaps you chat with a historical figure, having students interact with it, asking questions, analyzing responses. One important thing to note about this, especially as you teach your students, is that the AI is going to be taking everything that it knows about that person. So there's a lot of factual information for certain people, and there might not be as much factual information out there for other historical figures. When you're asking for historical facts, like things that can be checked and verified, normally with a popular historical figure, you're going to get those things. However, you could ask questions that don't actually have factual information. For example, let's say you're interviewing George Washington, and you ask George Washington who his favorite president was. Well, since George Washington's the first president, and you're probably wanting the answer to be with the list of all of our presidents, he is most likely going to say something about a president that was born after he died, that took presidency after he died. And the way that the AI is going to give that response, it's going to think about what values and characteristics did George Washington have and demonstrate, what was another president that had those same values, and then it's going to make that like projection of, this is my favorite president because of these things. That can be a great thing to actually analyze and go deeper. We don't take it for truth because it can't possibly be true because it never happened. Some things with book discussions, right? So like just having a discussion about a book, like creating some questions that you want students to dive deeper into their thinking. Perhaps that's kind of the stuff that they would put down on their, maybe a worksheet or anything to share, but perhaps they have the discussion first to help them generate their thoughts a bit more. You can just create things that are focused on a standard, and the bots will ask them about those standards, asking them to demonstrate their understanding and reteaching as necessary and providing that assessment. And then another option is entry and exit tickets. So rather than having students just exit by answering one question, you can use a bot to kind of ask them to summarize their learning and to dive deeper if they're not really emphasizing what the learning target was or how they met it, and they kind of have a discussion further. And that can help you kind of clarify some misconceptions for your next class. You might also consider it just for brainstorming things or preparing for things, whether that's creative writing. Perhaps I'm writing a short story, and one of my troubles is just coming up with the characters and setting and things like that, and so I could use AI to help me generate some of those story elements so that I can then go into the writing. Maybe we are debating something, or we have to defend our position on something. We can use the bots to help us kind of with those skills, getting feedback and trying to have them identify what are our weak points, what do we need to strengthen. AI image generation can be another one, whether that's storytelling or presentations. Maybe you're reading a book and you want students to gather evidence from the book, and then develop a prompt for a specific scene. And then finally, one that I think is super powerful is just writing feedback. So as I'm writing for something, I could ask for specific feedback on something, or maybe in the writing process, I need to brainstorm some ideas and develop kind of a thesis statement before I can move on, and I can just get help with those specific areas before I move on to the main part. So here's some examples of spaces that I've created that you can go into and play with if you would like. Most of these ones are on School AI. This one is just one on Magic School that I've put a few different tools together. And so one thing I like about Magic School is that you can create a space that has a variety of tools for students to use. In School AI, you create a space that has just like one specific prompt or tool that the students use. And mostly with School AI, it's chatbot focused. So Sidekick is School AI's kind of just open-ended AI like tutor for students to use. It's not focused on a specific topic unless you make that topic. So part of it is, how do I teach my students to do this and to do it well? Well, one thing is just to think about dry runs, like how can I implement this or get my students thinking about this and working this on something that's low stakes, right? Something that's not going to require too much thought as far as processing things, but like, let's just do something for no grade, but still do the things that we want. Giving them some prompting strategies. So I'll have some different things linked for you to look at that, but setting the purpose, being clear in your expectations, and revising. Showing them exemplar and non-exemplar chats, right? Like if you would generate a few chat transcripts, you can analyze them and see, okay, which chat was better or more clear in getting what it wanted. And then finally, whenever you are doing something like this, it's important to have a purpose statement and for students to also have that purpose statement. What am I using AI for in this project? If I could be clear and focus what the purpose is, then that means everything that I'm using AI for should be to meet that goal or to meet that purpose, and I shouldn't be straying off of there. So when you think about assessing your students' work, now that they might be using AI in some of it, there's a couple things, right? The first is perhaps we focus the learning target. So for example, if we had a larger writing project, and maybe I wanted to really focus on using evidence to support your reasoning. But if I allowed my students to brainstorm some ideas to write about, I don't really need to assess their ideas, right? Now I can focus more on the actual content, knowing that, yeah, they may have had the support in brainstorming the ideas, but now I can just focus on this one learning target. Another option is to assess the chat and see, okay, are they asking those critical questions? Are they really focused on the learning, or are they using this to just try and get it to do it for them, right? If they're doing it for the learning, you can be pretty, you can find that pretty easily through their questioning and through the way they follow up and revise things. If they're just doing it to get the work done for them, that's also really easy to see. Okay, it's just gonna say that like the student isn't engaged. It's gonna be very short responses that don't really interact or follow up or connect with what the bot was saying. And then finally, you can have students reflect as well, thinking about how the AI did or did not help them. What things did they have to question or think about before they went on to the next thing? It's really important for our students to not take AI for truth, right? It's a way to generate new things based on what it already knows, but we already know that there's misinformation out there. So it's important for students to develop those critical thinking and digital literacy skills. And one way to do that is through reflection, by asking them to think about this interaction. There's some resources here. I really enjoyed this webinar right here. that is really helpful. There's some other things that you could look at right here. The Digital Learning Podcast has been a podcast that has been focusing on AI for the last dozen episodes or so do check that out. And I will leave some other resources in this newsletter as well.